I'm Tom DeLacy, Director of Spanish American Football Academy here in New York City. You are watching Field of Dreams on ACTN. Forza! Forza! Forza!
Hey everybody, welcome to Field of Dreams on ACTN. I'm Steve David, I'm your host. It's been a while. We've in this pandemic and we going through all the different things where we have to do, so we're trying to get you updated to what's going on in the TTFA. So our topic today is football, the way forward. And there is lots of things to talk about, and there's lots of things happening that we read, and so we try to update. So let me introduce my two guests or panelists who's going to help me break it down and get you to understand what's really going on with TTFA. To my right, I've got Larry Joseph. Welcome to the set, Larry.
Thanks again, Steve. Always a pleasure.
And I kept him for last, save the best for last, they say. Anthony Clark, welcome to the set, Anthony.
Thank you again, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, where you've been?
I've been around, I've been around working hard. Also keeping a keen eye on what's going on football as well. So, I think it's a lot to discuss.
Well, you see, it's only three of us. And the reason for that is two of the other guys heard Clarky's going to be here, so they said they're not going to. And plus, we have to social distancing and all that.
Right, yes, yes.
So I expect to hear some stuff from you that you know, and Larry and myself, and we're going to add in, and we're going to see if we can help the viewers.
Wonderful.
Thing. So we have a new, well, everybody know we have a new regime, the new TTFA, with William Wallace is the lead, and they had election, and election is over, and they've been running for 3 months, and then all hell break loose. FIFA jump in. So let's talk about some of these things that happen and what we know. And I know you would know different things to what Larry would know, but what I would know is what we read,
yes.
And you might know a little bit more than us. So I want to put you on the spot for a minute, and I want you to start off telling us a little bit about, give us a little background.
Well, I think, right, they had the support and they won the election fair and square. I think they made some errors on entry. You know, politics is a thing that when you get into office, you want to say all the bad things the last administration did to try to show this and that. And football is a team sport. I think they should have dealt with things internally. And by doing that, I mean, you had the FIFA president, Infantino, coming down here, proudly opening the home of football. And after spending FIFA's money in opening the home of football, and one of the first things that they did was close it and say that it was not compliant. The compliance issues, as we have just seen, because they are using it now as a step-down facility for the COVID patients, it needed a WASA connection, which was done in 1 day. It needed fire extinguishers to be installed, and whatever repairs that they thought that it needed. In 4 days' time, those things were completed. And the compliance certificate was granted. So I think it was more a political thing to keep it closed, to embarrass the last regime, or to make it seem as though, right, this was a fairy tale opening, rather than, and if FIFA spent their money, and on top of that, there were some cases that were in the court, the Walks case, where they were issued, they hired the last attorneys, but they were issued information that this case was on this date and you'll have to appear. They did not appear. And the Walks' attorney and representation froze, applied to the judge to freeze the accounts. The accounts at TTFA were closed, right, were frozen. And I think these things helped the FIFA decide, look, let us go in and see what is happening, because expenses are mounting even higher than they were before. So I think instead of coming in and dealing with politics, because at the end of the day, the last members of the last regime are still involved in football, right? David John Williams still owns W Connection. They are still part of the footballing fraternity, right? And you should have come in, had a proper handover. I don't know if a handover was given or not, but try to get a handover, try to understand what was there, try to understand what is the easiest way to go forward. On top of that...
Wait. You want to comment on that? Because I want to comment a bit on... I think they came in, and I think they were setting things up. Because they had lots of committees. To me, they overset things up. They had many committees they formed and stuff.
And that is what I was going to next.
Right.
They raised the expenditure of the TTFA immensely. In the past, what I think the strategy of David John Williams was to rebuild, to start from the youth level. You know, I've always told people, since the under-16 team of Russell Atapi, Marvin Fostin, Colin Rock, Anthony Clark, the under-19 team of Hudson Charles, Kerry Jameson, Parrington, the under-15 team with Dwight York, Angus Eve, Ince and so on. The TTFA, that group of players carried football to 2007, since 1983. The TTFA never really focused heavily on youth development anymore, because you had some players there that was, that kept football alive, and the fans were coming, and we were getting results. I think what David John Williams decided to do was to press the reset button. The senior team, no matter which coach came into this country to coach our present crop of senior players, you won't get much improvement, because they are set in their ways, their skill levels are set, they are old fellas in their late 20s. And I think what his methodology was let's start from under 8, under 15, under 16. Let me see how I could bring down the debt by sending the senior team to play only external games so I could get income, rather than playing home games where I will have to expend.
Okay, so, and I hear you. So let's not get into what the old regime...
No, but I said that to say this. Okay. So he kept the expenditure down by having coaches coach different teams as well. With this new regime came in, they chose coaching staffs for each, and they brought back all the teams. They brought back the under-23, they brought back the senior team, and they staffed all the teams. Now with that, you have increased expenditure, because they negotiated US salaries for these coaches.
Because we had this discussion, and we find there was too much overlapping on the coaches, right? Because they had, you can help me with that.
The senior coach of one age group became the assistant coach for the, so they had doubling up on the coaches. But, in terms of what Clarky is saying, in terms of the the representative teams all were revived. I think that's the point
Yes.
he's raising.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Okay.
So the under 23 was no more. They revived the under 23 teams. The under right 19, if it is that hey one there, they revived that and they brought a whole new coaching staff there as well. So
You don't agree with that? You find
no.
that shouldn't happen?
Well, if it is that I go into an organization that I am saying has $50 million in debt, and I presently have an expenditure of $2 million a month, my first course of action is not going to increase that expenditure to $5 million a month.
Yeah, but
With no idea of where money is coming from.
if we got to stop the bleeding was our senior team was doing horrible. So we have to stop the bleeding. And we can't use a Band-Aid to stop that bleeding. We have to shut this, that. And I thought they did well to bring, and I'm putting my head out there, but I think Fenwick deserved a chance. And I thought that was a good idea.
Okay, I am not going to talk about Fenwick because he has no international experience coaching. None. Right? The only record that Fenwick has is with Sawa Jablati.
What did Lawrence have?
He had some international coaching. He coached with his team. He was the assistant coach of a team in Scotland and so on. And at least he had some international experience.
You're saying Lawrence has more experience than Fenwick.
I am saying that I don't want to go there.
Okay. So
What I want to go in with this,
All right.
you made a statement you had to stop the bleeding
Yeah.
of the senior team.
Right.
The senior team alone is not football. And the senior team's cost of running, you have to weigh cost here because TTFA is not a business where it generates profit. They depend on donations from either FIFA or donations from the government. All right? And successive TTFAs has put the TTFA in more and more debt. So you have to now find a different business strategy in terms, it's not just about the senior team and and results of the senior team.
Based on what you just said, why did John Williams, and I don't want to go back to
No, go ahead.
But why did not John Williams do the same thing? Because he came, Kendall Walks was gone, this one was gone, and he fired he fired Stephen Hart, he fired Kendall Walks, and he did the same thing.
Okay.
I hear your point. They're doing the same thing, making the same.
And that's why I said successive.
Okay.
I'm not blaming one administration. Successive administrations increase the debt.
I understand that. Okay, so say everybody did it,
Right.
and we going down the same road that we see.
Going down the same road. Right.
Okay.
So I think what I have to praise John Williams for, though, is that another statistic that a lot of people did not have was that the cost of housing our national teams for training and all those things per year were between $5 million and $7 million. Every year they spend in accommodation. And that was his premise for having the home of football and all the fields around. With that done, and of course that money was donated by FIFA to build that, so it didn't come from recurrent expenditure. It was specific to build this income generation project and the home of football. So it wasn't coming from the recurrent expenditure, it was money directed specifically to that project. And I think one of his strategies was, listen, if I can stop spending the $7 million every year, and even if I can make $2 million from the home of football or $1 million from the home, at least it would be income rather than expenditure. It will be mine, right? That home of football was Raymond Timke's idea. And that home of football was supposed to be close to the Manny Ramjan Stadium initially. What he did was that he thought that it would be better positioned to Central, closer to the aquatic center and the cycling center, where if they have events, they will be able to use it and so on. So I think that was one of the strategies that he was trying to find ways of income generation rather than continuing begging all the time.
But we know that.
Yes.
So now the home of football is built. Election come, the new regime take over, but they didn't open it. That is the problem we having. Yes.
Well, I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm saying
Yes.
They start.
I think that was one of the major things that caused FIFA to come in.
Right. They shut it down.
Yes.
So they shut that down, and they say they shut it because the permits wasn't issued from fire. This is what I don't know. I am just
Yes.
saying what I'm
Repeating
hearing.
what you read.
Permits wasn't issued, and from
No
fire
running
and electric TNT
TNTech and so on.
TNT and all that was. So they said it can't stop. We cannot. We have to get all these done before we move forward. They in office 3 months. For 3 months, the place was shut down for 3 months. Was that bad? Because I mean, I visited the place. I saw a couple rooms that was complete, but not everything was furnished or anything like it. Okay. So based on all that, I thought, I mean, give them a chance to see the dust settle, but that didn't happen.
Steve, I just spent $20 million to build, something. I came, and to me, and then I'm speaking as the president of FIFA, to me, it looked workable. Yes, it had some things to complete. Right? Based on his information, yes, it has some things to complete. Those things are relatively 1 or 2 weeks. That was his information. Nothing was done in terms of progressing the completion of the home of football. On top of that,
Wait. But is the home of football is not TTFA, and I am defending the group now.
it is the TFA.
No, it is TTFA, but the home of football is not our main purpose. TTFA is to run football.
Understood?
Not home of football.
Understood?
Okay. So, and they're trying to put coaches together and different things. So we put this home of football on the back burner for 2 months or 3 months. What's wrong with that?
Okay, so now I'll tell you what is wrong with that. Parallel to shutting down the home of football, they were approaching the Arima Borough Council and the government to take over the Arima Velodrome to build a similar project, to revamp, build accommodation there, build a field there so they will have something. Why go into another project like that when you have one there that is just right there to open?
You know about that, Larry?
Well, that became public information during the whole impasse.
That they were going to
the
build?
Secretary Ramdan made that public information. Yeah, that they
Really?
were going to build
In inverted commas, another home of
right,
football.
if you want to call it home of football 2. Same format, same everything, just in Arima. Yeah, so that is in the public domain, so that is correct.
And what I understand, I think that information was also leaked to FIFA. So that in turn, you shut my $20 million project down, and you now going to do something with private sector, something similar.
And I didn't know that, and I'm sure my viewers, did you know that? I'm sure my viewers did not know that. So that's why I'm glad you're here. Go ahead.
Right. So, with all that said, I am of the view as well that in the normalization committee being appointed, I think that the president should have remained, and they could have worked with the president, with him knowing that he has William Wallace.
Yeah.
If it is at footballist, he could have remained knowing that he has to now report to this normalization committee, and he can't just continue. But I understand that that is not the way a normalization committee operates. They come in, and anybody who was elected would have been removed. Mr. Ramdan is there still because he is a hired person. He is the general secretary, and that is right. He is not part of the So that's what I understand.
Let me take a break, and then we're going to get into this coming in at the normalization committee or whatever. Viewers, will be right back after the short break.
If I am funding your program and we had a discussion, or maybe when you came in, you didn't even approach me to find out what direction do you want it
But
to
we
take.
don't know that for sure.
Well, that is the information I'm giving you. FIFA was not even approached.
ACTN, The Voice, your family-friendly station.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. All right, Tony, my problem with the normalization committee taking over is the timing of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's if they had given this group, and maybe you would clear things up, if they had given this group, for me, time to see where they're going, I might have been okay with it. I'm not okay with it because in 3 months, I didn't even
Settle in. Correct.
for a while. So
I could agree with that position, and I would have said, give them at least a year to see what happens. But in terms, my last point was that I thought that the information of them moving forward to do another, in inverted commas, home of football, them not attending and challenging the Walks case. I said they didn't even attend the court hearing. They didn't send any representation to the hearing. Them closing the home of football and the information that, listen, it only taken 1 week or 2 weeks. Them getting all this information and seeing them going in a totally different direction. Another point that I think that was important was the cost of our recurrent expenditure, like paying coaches and so on and so forth. That ballooned to almost 3 times the cost, right? And you spending money, right, you don't have. And at the end of it, you are going to, and all that happened in the 3 months, huh? All that happened in the 3 months. So if I am funding your program and we had a discussion, or maybe when you came in, you didn't even approach me to find out what direction do you want it
but
to
we
take.
don't know that for sure.
Well, that is the information I'm giving you. FIFA was not even approached.
Okay, you didn't say that.
All right.
But you want me to...
Right. They went in and they started what they thought was the way forward for Trinidad and Tobago football.
Well, why don't FIFA say to them, give me a 6 month
That happened.
ahead.
That happened. FIFA came in.
Yeah.
They looked and they carried out an audit. I think they gave some instructions.
You think or we know?
No, well, I know that instructions were given, right? Mr. Ramdan said, right, it was in the public domain, that they were okay with this and they were okay with that, so how come now? So right, so that they had some sort of communication when, right, whatever committee they sent here to review, so they met. And I don't know what instructions were given, but my thought is that if I came in and we met, and things started, and then 3 months later, I came and shut the thing down, is that they were going awry to some negotiations. I could only assume that they were going awry because I came in a month and a half ago. We sat, we talked, we maybe discussed the way forward, and a month and a half, 2 months later, I come back in and I shut the thing down. One could only assume that things are not going how the discussions went, and therefore listen.
Well, help me, Larry, because if you don't give me money, if you don't give me funds, all I can do is plan. So FIFA had not released any funds to this to TTFA.
And
that is another. I'm giving you all the.
fine. And if no funds has been released to me, why am I starting to spend?
What you want me to do? I have to plan. I ain't spending. I'm
You're
planning.
spending because once you hire people and you sign contracts with people, you are
That's
committed
right.
to pay them.
So how long do you want me to sit there, twiddling my thumb, at the office, doing all this paperwork, planning? You have to give me money.
All right, but you can't spend what you don't have.
Like you're a construction man, and
Yeah.
when you have a big project, they give you some funds so you can mobilize.
Correct.
So FIFA give me some mobilization funds so you can see where I'm going. Do you agree with me or not? You're not saying nothing.
Well, from what I understood,
I haven't been asked anything.
right, what I understand,
Well, I
Steve,
want you to come in.
All
Help
right,
me.
well, let me just jump in here. Well, first to begin, I'm going to go back to the implementation of the normalization committee. In that I disagreed. I agree with you in terms of the
Correct.
timing of the implementing of the normalization committee, because just looking at purely from a common sense perspective, I think 3 months, maybe 4 for the most when they were in office, to turn around and have an about face on them being representative of the TTFA, to me, doesn't make sense simply because of the time that elapsed. We're talking 3, 4 for the max. And based on what I read at the time, FIFA's representatives and the new regime were meeting.
correct.
Not only were they meeting, but the financial plan forward for the new regime was being shared with FIFA's representative. And at the times of these meetings, if I'm to believe what I read, FIFA had no problem at all with the plans that they laid out. They found that they were good plans, workable plans,
That's what I heard.
realistic plans, and something that, in the face of the present situation, can work. No, we have to remember that we didn't even reach 5 months of existence.
Right.
And then, boom, you get up the next day and hear that FIFA is removing this present regime and replacing them with a normalization committee with the excuse that the debt that is present, FIFA is now saying that the plans that this new regime is showing to them in no way is going to eliminate or reduce the debt going forward. And so they would be incapable of running football in Trinidad, and we have to replace them with a normalization committee. That makes absolutely no sense.
So what is your assumption?
To my limited knowledge.
Right, so what is your assumption there, Larry?
It has to be that FIFA came in loaded with an agenda.
No.
And so did not give the new regime time to even fail.
Right.
Maybe they could have looked at the plan and figured this thing may work. And in order for it not to work, we have to cut it short. I could assume that.
All right, no.
Just like how you assume.
No, agreed.
FIFA probably thought that they made too many missteps in 3 months, so we're going to cut it here now. I could also assume that the plans and projection which FIFA sat with them and were aware of, and at no point in time in the discussion...
That is why I disagree with you, Larry.
Right? At no point in the time in the discussion, only they said, listen, there is no way that you could do this, we're going to shut you down. Remember, they found out they were shut down from third party, From third party. So how am I, as a layman, listening and looking into all of it? What am I supposed to think?
All right, let me ask a question to Larry.
I love this agreement. So
All right, let me ask this question to Larry.
Yes.
You are saying that, and I read it as well, that FIFA had no problem with the plans of the TTFA. I saw that as well. That came from the TTFA. They said so. But for me, assuming just like you, if that is true, then it doesn't make sense. Right? Then you could assume that FIFA is right, came in loaded and so on. Suppose that, just like how they said that they had the endorsement of Junior Sammy, just like that same group said that they had the sponsorship of Nike, They also said that they had the agreement of FIFA. They started off with lies. So for me, an organization like FIFA, coming in only after 3 months, after sitting with them, something is awry. FIFA will not just do that, come in after talking to, and then this group who has a history of lying to the public said, no, everything was fine. Right? We don't understand. They came and they sat with us and they liked our plans. Why then will FIFA come in right a month, 2 months later?
Well, why don't FIFA tell us why they come in and take over?
Well, FIFA is a closed group. FIFA not going to say anything. They're going to do what they have to do. But just to ask Larry that question and show him some history of them trying to promote themselves greater than they were, that is, I think, is more realistic view than I understand, and I can agree with that view as well. But the facts say differently. And the facts are that they started to spend money that they didn't have. They had $3 or $4 million in the accounts, right? They agreed that they had about $2.5 or $3 million in the accounts, because if they had no money, Steve, Walks couldn't have freeze zero.
Right.
Right? And they were going to pay the backlog of NIS or something, so they had funds there to also pay back. That was $4 million, so it means that they had more than $4 million in the accounts. All right? But the expenditure was so high in terms of all the committees and the staff that they brought in. And that, I think, had a lot to play on FIFA's decision. Now, we are just assuming here, and I'm glad that there's a pro and there's a con, and we are just talking what we assume.
If I'm FIFA, the expenditure is so high, tell me how you plan to make money to bring this down. And now they have the home of football.
Correct.
That they can bring back up running to generate funds.
At least cut expenditure.
Right.
Right? Right?
Okay.
I'm not going to generate income yet. At least cut expenditure.
Okay.
Because for their teams to continue, in the past, we would have had to hire maxi taxis to take one team in Arima, one team Manny Ramjan, one team Hazley Crawford, and if they have to camp, we have to pay a hotel in Tonga, a hotel in East, and a hotel in South, and that is expenditure. So the home of football would have been there to start, even for our meetings, because we would have had to rent Hazley Crawford Stadium or rent UE to have our normal annual general. Now we can have all those things at the home of football. Mm-hmm. So to start, it will cut expenditure. All right? So that's the start. We're not even going to it being
okay.
out.
But the point is, I need some funds.
Right.
So
I need some
funds. Coming from?
So what the past regime did to collect funds, right, was that they accepted invitations for their national teams to play overseas, and that brought in income. I understand that every time, right, the national team played overseas, you'll get, right, significant income in U.S. currency.
We agree. But it didn't happen in 3 months.
No, it didn't happen in 3 months.
Right. So still going back to that's my pet peeve. 3 months you give me. I can't do nothing in 3 months.
And I totally agree with that. That we agree on. 3 of us agree that the time was not enough.
That's really where I'm at. Just the length of time or the lack of time that was given to the
And that is why I'm asking the question, what do you assume by that?
And I already gave my reason, so that if you were in discussion with these people during their tenure, because you want to ensure that things go in a certain way, and then in 3 months, let's say 4, without the decency of informing them in person, but they had to find out third party.
Correct.
That's the problem I'm having. I am not defending anybody who did wrong in the new regime or the past.
Yes.
I'm just speaking specifically to that.
Yeah, that's incident of the 3 months.
Yeah, that's where I am having a little issue with.
Now let me give you another rumor.
In keeping with the topic that we're discussing, football the way forward. right? It's unfortunate it had to unfold that we have a normalization committee implemented. Now, of course, based on our debt alone, just purely on our debt alone, right? If it is that this normalization committee eventually becomes the pilot to the way forward for the next 2 years, we could expect that most of that debt would be reduced. And at least there would be some light at the end of the tunnel going forward.
Yes.
So I'm just showing that in
Yes, yes,
the
yes.
topic we're discussing.
Yes.
Rumor. You said about the rumor, because I like rumors.
Yes.
And I have one for you too. Go ahead.
The rumor also was, and that, well, it wasn't so much a rumor, because William Wallace had indicated that he saw the counsel of Austin Jack Warner. So the rumor was that some sort of clandestine arrangement was made where Austin Jack Warner would have been in the background, and I don't know if that also played a part in FIFA sending in a normalizing committee.
Let me give you a rumor. Your turn next.
I have
A
no
rumor
rumors.
is this regime was going to expose FIFA in wrongdoing or collaboration with the old regime. That's why they jump in to stop it.
What type of collaboration? I don't know because
Spending the home of football, the money,
But-
again, rumors.
but
I don't
again-
listen to rumors.
it's FIFA money, so
like it, but-
right, it can't have no collaboration where it is that I give you my money and I have a collaboration on how I spend my own money.
No. In that, again, it's rumor. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
listen to rumors, but something to do with FIFA is going to get exposed, whether in the money they gave, whether it's the relationship with the old regime, whatever it is, it was going to bring out something, and it's rumor.
Well,
and again, I don't listen.
That right there could explain why the normalization committee came in.
I mean, we all
to
heard,
shut that down.
Right.
all heard rumors beside what we read in the press
Yes.
during the fiasco.
Yes.
And I mean, it really depends on the individual, like for myself, to decide or to decipher which one of these I want to believe or not believe.
Right.
Unless otherwise presented as facts
Facts,
in the
yes.
public domain.
Right.
Everything else is pure hearsay and rumor.
Yes.
Right? Until otherwise. So it's just unfortunate that we are where we are in terms of our local football, because everything suffers when you're in a situation, especially where there is a contest by the new regime in the courts for the bringing in of this normalization committee. So that kind of slows down the process in and of itself.
But Larry, let me ask this question. What can be positive out of that? What can come, right? What is the positive that can come out of them challenging FIFA?
Well, my personal view is I didn't like the idea that FIFA, who is considered a major body, some people call them a bully in the world of football,
They are bullies.
looked at Third World Trinidad and decided that we're going to use our bullying tactics to get rid of a regime who we probably don't like for whatever reason, right? And I didn't like the idea that they could just so easily come into our scenario, right, and dismiss a legally elected entity in less than 4 months.
All right, let me ask
So let
another
me finish
question.
That was just half the point I'm making.
All right.
Right? So I'm looking at it from a Trinidadian point of view. Okay, a lot of people will look at the monetary value to the football. We in so much of debt, we need FIFA to come in with their money to bring us out. But what about the principle involved of a legally elected entity being removed in a real bullying fashion? I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't like that. Regardless of whether the benefits that the normalization could bring with the backing of FIFA, of course, to the local game, that's not what I'm arguing. I'm just arguing at the method that was used.
But the method is known. It is in FIFA's regulations.
Yes, Clarky, I
wait.
understand. But
It is
I
in
know where
FIFA.
you're going-
Wait.
I know where you're going with that. But in all the other cases where the normalization came, right? it wasn't in the same scenario as Trinidad and Tobago. It
Let me
wasn't
take a
in
break.
that 3-month period when they
Understood.
removed the elected people and replaced them.
Let me take
Other
a break.
countries-
Let me take a break. I'll let you come back with your piece. Viewers will be right back after the short break.
The only people who call it, whether you want to call it stupidity or whoever, is going to take on the giant FIFA has been this new regime. Everybody else is going to kowtow to FIFA, right?
The bully.
No, they're not, well,
ACTN, The Voice, your family-friendly station.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. All right, I promise I'll let you respond to what
Yeah.
Harry was saying.
At the end of the day, I am aware that of the organization that I am a part of and affiliated to. I am aware of their rules and regulations, and their rules and regulations indicate that at any point in time, they can come in with a normalization committee. And if it is, and I personally feel that one of the major factors of why they came in was because of the increased expenditure, and all they could have seen was increased debt at that point in time. Because I think that they had a plan with the present regime, with the previous regime, in terms of debt reduction, not focusing on senior teams. Remember, and I always tell people this, when England did not qualify for the World Cup, it took them 8 years before they made another World Cup. And for some reason, Trinidadians feel, and they had, and when they made that World Cup, it was the players who, they built a home of football, they focused on their youth teams, and it was their youth players that made the World Cup finally. It was the fruits of their labor for the same sort of system that the previous regime, I'm not calling names, was trying to adopt, focusing on youth, not focusing on the senior team. England senior team for 8 years didn't make the qualifiers of a European Cup, didn't qualify for the World Cup. But Trinidad seems to think that we are above that. We should just click like that and come back, and the senior team should just flip a switch and come back to be. No, you have to develop those players. And what I think FIFA agreed with was, listen, cut expenditure, because the expenditure is with the senior team. The expenditure is not with the youth teams.
We understand.
You have a little coach, you have a little team, you'll have a tournament once a year, and so on, and you'll have regional tournaments, and that is how you expose them and so on. And that is what they were doing. Remember the under-15 tournament where we lost, we brought in big teams, but that was exposure. That is what I think they agreed with in terms of, and while that was happening, allow your senior team to go there and get some licks, but you're making income and cut your expenditure. But Trinidadians focus on a result with a senior team versus the real future of football, which lies with the youth.
No, yes, but let me defend that them on this one. If my senior team keeps going out and get licks, my ranking keeps dropping, I can never get to any kind of World Cup or anything like that, because I would never be ranked enough to go. You know, I cannot forget my senior team and just develop. I have to do everything. It has to be
agreed, but what I'm saying is, Steve, that same thing happened to England. Their ranking dropped. England was in the top 10. They dropped almost right in the 20s. But their plan was, at that point in time, they were bringing in, they concentrated on youth teams. They did very well in the youth tournaments. And therefore, those youths were coming up, and eventually, those youths who are the youth you're seeing, Sterling and all, they came from that program. Sterling is now the captain of England.
Still in captain in England?
I think it's Sterling captain in England. Who is captain in England?
Jordan Henderson. His
But
ignorance-
Sterling was captain at one point in time.
he was given the armband.
Armband, okay, a couple of times.
He
But
has
yes,
worn the
All
armband.
right,
I've
he
got
has
a
won the
question-
armband,
I've got a
yes.
question for you too. Do you think FIFA could walk in to Brazil or the same England or Italy or Argentina and do exactly what it did here?
if they were financially viable, no.
If
Which
it was
they
the
are.
Same situation. Do you
Same
think
situation. You see,
They treat
I don't think it's a realistic question, right? Why it's not a realistic question is this. In those big countries, private sector is heavily invested into football.
Right.
And they would not even allow football. But if private sector was not invested and those countries were totally dependent on FIFA, right, they would have been able to. But it's not a fair question because Trinidad's private sector, we are totally dependent on funding.
Right.
That's how our football runs. Right? We come cap in hand to decide, and sometimes, like what I think happened on this occasion, we started to spend money that we don't even know where it's coming from, spend money that we don't even know how we're reducing our debts. And based on the rumor that Mr. Right, Fenric Terry presented a contract to the normalization committee, his salary was $20,000 US a month, plus right other perks. That's just one coach. $20,000 US a month is what is rumored to be what he presented to the normalization committee.
So under the old regime, what was Lawrence's salary? What was Stephen Hart's salary? It was about the same.
Lawrence's salary, I understand, was way less than that. I think right. Lawrence's salary was about $9,000 US.
We never got the figures from Lawrence's salary, no?
From what I understand, it was about $9,000. Right?
Okay.
All right. Just like how I'm saying that it is rumored that it was rumored that it was
So,
9. On top of that,
Yeah.
he was also coaching. He took over the technical director position from Anton Cornell when he left. He was also coaching all the other teams. He was the head coach of all the other teams, while the other head coaches there were his understudy. So for that, he was doing way much more in terms of workload
Who are you talking about?
with Tennis Lawrence.
Lawrence was our.
He took
Okay.
over that position when Anton Cornell, when he sent TTFA to court and he left, Dennis Lawrence also took over the technical director position. Also took over senior coach of some of the youth teams as well.
Maybe he took over the name, but he haven't been doing nothing with them. I mean, he says, oh yes, I'm the head coach and I'm getting my butt whooped everywhere I go. Okay, and you says, and Larry is the president, and Larry said, well, I said, yeah, I'll take it. So yeah, I'll take it, but I didn't really spend no time with them.
But again, we are assuming that. I had visited the under-15 team at one point in time that Stuart Charles was in charge of, and the senior team head coach was there on the field with Mr. Charles. Remember, Stuart Charles as well was also the assistant coach of the senior team, and he now became the head coach of the under-15 team.
He was always the head coach.
Right, correct, but at the same salary, not at two salaries.
Well, nobody say that.
Right.
We inquiring salaries.
Right. So the point I'm making is that we cannot compare countries like Brazil or Europe We can't compare that to make if FIFA will come in. If I see my money, one, I spent money, $20 million, and you shut it down. Two, I have a case where some guy is claiming $5 or $6 million US. You don't even send a representation to try to defend it because he was part and parcel of your package of the new TTFA. Three, if the previous expenditure of running a TTFA was $10 million, you increase that to 30 immediately by the amount of committees and hirings that you have made. Four, last point, you are going parallel to what I just produced and going to try to build another home of football and shutting down the one I have. I think that is enough justification for coming in when they did.
All right. For both of you guys, because we're going to run out of time, I know we can talk about this over a week. Why aren't we getting support from CONCACAF? Or are we? Local, even pro league? And to me, like, everybody is backing out and supporting FIFA. And I heard mentions from one of you, maybe FIFA come in loaded, right? Because for whatever reason, I don't want to make my mouth
Larry?
Well, I
itself.
mean, to me, it's obvious that any support from the CONCACAF level is always going to be pro-FIFA support.
Yes.
I mean, that's
Yes.
a no-brainer,
A no-brainer.
right? That's a no-brainer. Okay?
And CFU, you could go down to
And
CFU
down
as well.
to CFU.
Right,
Yeah,
yes.
So those are no-brainers. There is the only people who call it, whether you want to call it stupidity or whoever, is going to take on the giant FIFA has been this new regime. Everybody else is going to kowtow to FIFA, right?
The bully.
No, they're not. Well,
They're the bully.
FIFA does bully people, but I don't want it to sound that people will always kowtow to FIFA because they're bullying them.
They have the
It's
money.
simply because of FIFA's constitution. Your hands are hogtied.
That's
behind
right.
You.
That's right.
In a lot of things that you cannot do.
That's right.
And so if you want to remain within the framework, you have to suck in some of your principles, if you want to survive.
Once you are not
Right.
economically viable,
And then right.
And you're
That's a
going
good
cap
point
in
too.
hand.
So if in our situation in the CONCACAF region, or more so in the CFU region, where we have absolutely no private enterprise input into most of the running of the football and are dependent on hands out from FIFA, then if that's the hand that feeds you,
you can't bite it.
you understand? So again, it may come where you have to go against your moral compass sometimes. Some people may figure, well, look, that's too high a price to pay and I will challenge it, which may be what they're doing now. But it doesn't change the reality of the situation you are in. You belong to an organization that really holds sway, and in a lot of situations, even supersedes the laws of the government
That's
of
right.
your country. So it's really difficult to win, even though you may be right.
And sorry, Steve. And right, I was asking, to me, it says to me that the ego of the new TTFA is too big. And they are getting some sort of push from some force that thinks that they know how this thing works in FIFA. Because even if we win at the
Court level.
right? Who do we have to run back to?
Exactly.
So I beat you in court, and now I come in the double here, what? I need 50 million. There is no winning by challenging FIFA.
Well, we begging them. They're supposed to give us. They have to give us. It's like a kid walking into your yard and beat you up and then walk back out.
No, but Steve, right? No, right. Let me put it to you how it is. It is like you, who is in charge of this program, and you invite the guests that you want. I can't walk in here and say, listen, I was on this program last week, on this program this week. And that is what it is. FIFA is in charge. And therefore, if they choose, because of the laws and regulations, that listen, is it only listen to how I want you all to run? And if you all decide to go elsewhere and decide to do this and do that, right, let us assume that the previous regime was following the direction because several European people from the European Union, right, Football Union and so on came here, FIFA delegation came here during the last administration. It's the most I have seen FIFA's. The president came twice. The president himself came on 2 occasions in 4 years. Have you ever seen that before? Even when the Austin Jack Warner was here, Avalanche didn't come here twice in right, over a regime. So obviously, they were in agreement with how something was going on. And therefore, if it is that you want to go contrary to who I want to lead this thing, I'm not saying this is factual, then there's a price to pay.
I've got a little limited time. I want you to tell me and you to tell me, Larry, you go first, on what you think should happen, whether FIFA should take over or the group here should just say, hey, whatever. I don't want to tell you what to say, but what do you think should happen?
Well, based on the utterances of the present group as late as yesterday, they seem to be rethinking their challenge to the FIFA and the courts, because they're now saying that this so-called independent CAS doesn't appear to be so independent after all. So they may very well be wasting their time and money if they were to continue their case. So it appears from the utterances from their legal people as if they're leaning towards withdrawing the appeal, which would then mean that there would be no opposition to the implementation of the normalization committee into our football affairs. Regardless of which way that swings, the normalization committee is going to run football in Trinidad for the next 24 months. With FIFA's backing, I am going to assume that our football business is going to improve because FIFA is going to back it.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I think that is wise of them if they say that they love football. This same group, it does not keep them after the 24 months from going back up for...
I think there should be fresh elections.
Right, I know, but it doesn't keep them from going back up, from putting themselves back up.
Yeah.
Not because they were removed now.
That's right.
So, and at that position, I assume, as Larry said, that Trinidad football will be in a better position. And if this group and the people of Trinidad and Tobago want back this group after 24 months, so be it, and we will be in a better position to move forward from then.
I hate to say this, but I don't like the method that was done. And FIFA just can't walk in and take over. And I have that kind of mind. That ain't happening. But thinking about the good of football and the people who suffer, you know who's suffering? I'm glad I'm not playing football anymore.
Yeah, the players are suffering.
That's it.
Clarky, look at the make come back.
So I'm glad this is not my time to play football because I'll be pissed off.
Correct.
So and they should be pissed off. For the good of football, we should make the right decision.
Yes.
Whatever that is. Any closing comments?
Well, I think that right decision is, you know that you are facing a monster. For the good of football, as Larry say, hold back some of your morals, hold back some of your anger and so on. You know that in 24 months, FIFA is not going to make football worse. It is going to be better, and therefore, football on a whole is going to improve. I feel that FIFA is going to put money in, and it will be better.
Yeah, definitely. Simply because of the situation we're in. I mean, I agree with you, Steve. I didn't like the high-handed way in which FIFA came in, right? But at the end of the day, you are operating within their rules, in their arena, and there are some things you have to abide by, even if you disagree with. In our present scenario, the best thing for our local football now is the normalization committee with the backing of FIFA charting Trinidad's football future for the next 24 months or thereabout.
All right, viewers, you heard it. You make the final decision on this. Thank you, ACTN, for giving us the opportunity. Thank you, viewers, for tuning in. Don't forget, we repeat on a Tuesday at 1 o'clock, and we're on at 8 o'clock every Monday night. The show is ended. Go in peace. My name is Steve David. Good night.